The first thing my older brother said after finding out my surgery fund was empty was, "Well, at least somebody got to enjoy the money." Then he laughed. Actually laughed. I remember sitting there at our mother's kitchen table staring at him while cruise photos glowed across his phone screen behind a half-finished glass of bourbon. Blue ocean. Private balcony. Matching white outfits. Meanwhile, I was 3 weeks away from spinal surgery I suddenly couldn't afford anymore. Yeah. That didn't sit right. My name's Rowan Mercer. I'm 44 years old, and if there's one thing I've learned about family, it's this. People rarely reveal who they are during your success. They reveal themselves when helping you becomes inconvenient. The surgery fund existed because 2 years earlier I got injured working offshore maintenance contracts in the Gulf. One bad equipment failure. One wet metal staircase. 1 second of bad luck. After that, my lower back basically turned into a permanent argument with gravity. At first I kept working through it because grown men are weirdly talented at pretending pain is temporary. Then came the nerve damage. After that, every doctor appointment started sounding more expensive than the last. Surgery offered decent odds of recovery, but insurance only covered part of it. So my mother suggested something the family could all contribute toward together. Big mistake. Now, to be fair, not everybody involved was malicious. Some relatives genuinely helped. My Aunt Celeste mailed checks every month with little handwritten notes telling me not to give up. My cousin Ivy organized community fundraisers. Good people existed. But my brother Dalton? Different story. Dalton treated responsibility like airport security lines. Something annoying other people should deal with while he looked important nearby. Still, he knew how to perform concern publicly. That's why everybody trusted him handling the shared family contribution account while I focused on rehab appointments and contract consulting work from home. Looking back now, honestly, I should have checked things sooner. But pain changes your focus. You stop thinking strategically once basic movement starts hurting every morning. Around that same time, Dalton's wife Vanessa suddenly became obsessed with luxury cruise content online. Mediterranean packages. Caribbean suites. Private excursions. I remember Dalton joking during one family dinner. "Man, 1 week away from normal people sounds incredible." Normal people. Interesting phrase considering he technically used my medical fund to finance becoming not normal for 8 days. The discovery happened accidentally. 3 weeks before surgery, the hospital billing coordinator called asking why final payment authorizations hadn't cleared yet. At first I assumed paperwork delays. Then I checked the account. Empty. Not low. Empty. I genuinely thought maybe I opened the wrong banking app. When I confronted Dalton later that night at our mother's house, he barely looked nervous. That part still amazes me. He leaned back drinking bourbon while cruise photos played across their television like a tourism commercial specifically designed to insult me personally. "You overreacting?" he asked casually. "The account's gone." Dalton shrugged. "I borrowed some." Some. Guy drained nearly $80,000 and called it some. Mom looked horrified. Vanessa suddenly became fascinated by her fingernails. I stared directly at Dalton. That money was for surgery. He sighed dramatically like I was ruining the evening atmosphere. "You're still getting treatment eventually." Eventually. Interesting word when nerve damage gets worse every month. Then came the line I'll probably remember forever. "You act like nobody else deserves happiness too." That's when I knew this was gonna get ugly. See, Dalton always confused selfishness with confidence. People tolerated it because charm covers rot surprisingly well for a while. But not forever. I didn't scream. Didn't threaten him either. Honestly, angry reactions would have helped him more than me. Instead I just nodded slowly. Okay. That answer unsettled him immediately. Because calm people scare dishonest ones. Over the next few months I rebuilt quietly. Hardest period of my life honestly. More remote consulting work. Smaller apartment. Physical therapy delays. Meanwhile Dalton kept living loudly online. Cruise photos. Expensive dinners. Motivational captions written by a man who technically stole surgery money from his own brother. Wild stuff. Then life shifted unexpectedly. A former offshore client named Garrett Nolan reached out after hearing about my injury situation through old industry contacts. Garrett managed operational logistics for a private maritime hospitality company expanding luxury cruise maintenance systems. Basically floating cities needing technical oversight 24 hours a day. You still know marine systems better than anybody I've worked with, Garrett told me during a video call. I laughed bitterly. Can barely tie my shoes some mornings. Can you think? He asked. Yeah. Then we can work with that. That conversation changed everything. I started remotely first. Reviewing mechanical infrastructure reports, advising engineering teams, redesigning maintenance protocols. Turns out years offshore taught me things textbooks never could. Within 18 months I became director of fleet operations for Meridian Voyages. Good salary. Better healthcare. Most importantly, enough stability to finally complete surgery properly. Recovery took time, but eventually the pain eased enough that I stopped planning my entire day around movement. Funny thing about rebuilding slowly. People who underestimated you rarely notice until you're already standing again. Then came the twist life apparently spent 2 years setting up. Meridian acquired operational control partnerships across multiple luxury cruise routes. Including one ship Dalton constantly bragged about wanting to experience someday. The Aurora Crest. Huge ship. Private suites. Infinity deck pools. Basically floating wealth with buffet stations. My office ended up on board quarterly for inspection rotations. Yeah. Life has a weird sense of humor sometimes. Now here's where most people expect dramatic revenge. That's not what happened. Real consequences usually arrive quieter than fantasies. Dalton destroyed himself gradually. Debt piled up after the cruise spending spiral continued. Vanessa left after financial pressure got ugly. Mom stopped defending him once she realized he'd secretly borrowed against family assets too. By the 4th year, Dalton looked exhausted constantly. Smaller apartment. Contract jobs. Tired eyes. Then one afternoon during Aurora Crest inspections, guest services informed me somebody downstairs requested a meeting specifically after recognizing my name. Guess who? Dalton stood near the lower deck cafe wearing wrinkled khakis and embarrassment like an extra layer of clothing. Turns out he'd taken a discounted seasonal maintenance subcontract aboard the ship. Not glamorous work either. Inventory handling. Equipment hauling. The same kind of labor he used to mock openly. For a second neither of us spoke. Ocean stretched endlessly behind him through the windows. Finally Dalton laughed awkwardly. Well. Guess this is your ship now. Not defensive. Not arrogant. Just tired. I sat across from him quietly. You could have asked me for help back then. He rubbed his face slowly. I know. Silence again. Heavy silence. Then he surprised me. I think part of me hated needing anything from you. That landed harder than excuses would have honestly. Because it was finally true. Dalton spent his entire life worshipping appearances so deeply that vulnerability felt humiliating to him. Even family vulnerability. Especially family vulnerability. I looked around the cafe for a second before answering. You didn't steal money because you needed a cruise. He frowned slightly. You stole it because admitting I mattered felt smaller than pretending you did. That one hit. You could see it physically. Dalton stared down at the table for a long time afterward. No arguments. No anger. Just quiet understanding arriving years late. Before leaving, he stopped near the doorway. I am sorry, Rowan. And honestly? For the first time, I believed him. These days my office overlooks open water 3 months out of every year. Some mornings I stand on the upper deck watching sunrise hit the ocean while engineers brief me about systems running beneath thousands of passengers who never notice the machinery keeping everything alive below them. Funny metaphor there somewhere. Because the people doing the quiet work underneath things usually matter more than the loud ones taking pictures on top.